Welcome back on Dynamod. Today I want to propose you a video about how to paint the Black Armour. In this case specific one about the Death Company Intercessor, but it can be used for the Raven Guard, for the Death Company normal ones, so it's not a problem. It's the way to paint the Black Armour in this case. So now we can begin to see the steps. And as primer I decided to use a liquid one, and the choices that I have are the black primer of the Vallejo and the Citadel base Abaddon Black. It's up to you decide which one you prefer, if you want to have a spray one or so on. I simply prefer to use the liquid one because I find myself better in using them for the base, and the Vallejo primer as base one. But I'll bring in this video quite soon a comparison so that you can evaluate. As model to paint, I decided to use the sergeants coming from the Warhammer Conquest #1 issue, so you can find the link about unboxing in the description. The goal to paint the primer. So I take the model and a brush with a large pinpoint, and this is a really good way to put the color on the model itself without creating some not good amassing of painting itself. The advantage of using the Vallejo is that with this I can make that being quite a liquid one can enter in the inner parts of the details and so on without having problem to have multiple passages, so I have only if I need to cover some parts of the largest one that has not been covered completely, but the inner part I don't need to use too much paint on, and it's an advantage in this case. And here you can see the reason why I use a glove, and it's to keep the parts of the models and so on, so that if I had to touch and so on parts that otherwise are mobile, remember that I'm monetized, so some things are not stable fixed on, I can use and take without having too much of the colors that risk to be on my hands, and then touching can be transmitted, so it's easier to clean and I preserve my hand better. And now we can use the Citadel base Abaddon Black. In this case I want to remember you that this color is more concentrated than the Vallejo one, so it has a lot of useful things and a lot of things that you have to pay attention about. The useful things, it's better suited for large surface because it covers with the black better, but it reach less the inner parts, so you have to dilute it, and so you'd risk to lose some of its properties. But the good part about this is that when you painted a model, you can recover a sort of primer parts simply putting with this on the parts, and I think that it's better than the use of the Vallejo primer color, but it's not bad. But being more concentrated than the Vallejo one, you have to pay attention not to create mass of colors when you give the primer using this Abaddon Black. But remember, it's up to you, and you can combine both because I think that they are perfect to use for different reasoning. So the primer as Vallejo I prefer to use as base, but this one I prefer to recreate a primer condition, so it's a good thing in both cases. And here you can see the comparison of the left Vallejo one and the right the Abaddon Black. So they are really good. You can decide which one you prefer on such small surfaces. They are both available and really good to use. And then I take the Citadel base Rackard Flash to create the highlights using the technique of the dye brush. Yes, the dye brush. And it's used because it's perfect to create the highlights of the lines that you need instead to be really quite precise and so on, and at the same time create on the model itself some points of light that you need when you came back and take back the color using again, but we'll see later, the color itself of the black. And you don't need to be too much precise, you need to cover and take the lines that are of the model, the main one, but you need to create so that all the model is a bit dirty of white, because this dirty, it will be the base on which you create the lightening of the model itself. So pay attention and try not to use too much color, because you don't have to make that color it's too much white, but you have to concentrate on the lines and at the same time taking a bit of dirtying the model itself with the white itself. The same things we do for the arms of the model, simply they are smaller, so you risk to put too much color when you do the brush, so eventually try to use more the brushing using less color on the brush itself, simply trying to adjust to your needing. And when you make a mixed part as the arm with the weapon, try not to put color on the weapon itself. Eventually you can repaint it with a bit of primer and use the Abaddon Black in that case. And now with the Raptor Flash we refine the parts of the model itself. And we put more color on certain areas, for example the breast. In this case we had to pay attention to use a mix of the brush and putting the layers so that we have a good control on the parts that we need, because we need not to dirty the around parts, so we have put yet the color and we need to create the contrast, so this part has to be more relevant in color than the round ones. So it's a good thing to create and do, and so take your time to do such thing, because it requires a bit of time, but it's perfectly. And a little trick is to make the eyes now using a really thin brush, so that we have the colors, and it will be useful when we go to create the face, because it's yet ready. And other parts that you have to highlight are the armor conjunctions. These are parts that you have to use precision to highlight, because you don't have to make a mess around them, but they are really quite important ones, because once that you blend everything together they will be making a contrast that it will be perfect to make the model like living, so they are really quite good. And now I suggest you also to paint the eyes, the highlights of the helmet, because you'll have then to put the color to make the highlight of them. So pay attention and use now the color. And we have to highlight also the arms. So now we have to pay a bit of attention, because they are really small surfaces to paint, so pay attention. And these are quite important, because even if they are really quite small, are those small lights that make the model more vivid, so pay attention to such a detail. And another thing that I suggest to put color on are the scroll. So use this step to create the scrolls. You have to make that they are plain on. The scrolls are yet made that has a volumetry, so using this color make that when we put everything together, blending with the ink everything together, we have them gain the 3D effect. So you have to have a plain color of them, so that they gain then the shadowing that they need to create volumetry. So pay attention to such details. And then it's time to refine the model, the armor of the model. So we take the Chaos Abaddon Black, and we need in this case to put the bit of water so that we can dilute it, so that it's creating not a base but a layer. So we put the color that we create in this case, so layering the Abaddon Black on the parts, trying to be only on the center, so that we can create a sort of blending of the black on the lighting that we created before, so that we don't lose all the lights, but at the same time we can create the armor that was under. So we can use different layering, so we need to adjust the amount of thickness of the Chaos Black that we are going to use based on how much we want that it's covering the bottoming highlights. So we need to take our time and decide which parts. Here we need really a bit of precision doing. So eventually do simple and small strips of color instead of really big parts. You don't need quite a lot. Simply pay attention about the surfaces that you need. So step by step do. And about the arms, we have to pay attention because they are smaller, so the details are more. About the shoulder pads, we can't have no problems when we are in the center of the shoulder pads, but it's better to dilute and pay attention where we put the colors when we move on the contours of the shoulder pads themselves. And about the other parts, we have to make thin lines, diluted but thin lines. Eventually, even if you dilute it too much, make another step. So pay attention to put step by step and don't be in a hurry when you do such a thing, because it's something that you need to take your time to do. It's something that let you have details on reverting it. So it can be really quite useful, but you have to pay attention to such step. And make even more diluted parts of color when you need to put, for example, on smaller line in the center and so on, for example for the lines on the shoulder pads and so on, because you need to create a sort of really thin lines. So really take your time using this step, because are the parts that need more caring and more attention. And now it's time for the faces. So I use the Catacomb Fleshstone and I use this creating a sort of dye brush on the face itself. Here you have to pay attention where you put the colors. So take your time doing this and simply use a small detail brush so that you gain quite a lot doing such a thing, because as you can see you can make multiple layers of the brush so that you can accentuate these parts. Eventually, if you want to evaluate a lot certain parts, you can highlight with a brighter color as the white that we've seen before, and they will result more and they create even more contrast later. And now I have also to paint the weapon, so I use the lead picture as color, and in this specific case I'm going to use a brush for the detail because I need to pay attention where I'm going to put the color on, simply it, but you can use on other models also a bigger brush based on what you have to paint. So I'm going to paint the weapon, the main one, the Requiem, and then when I take the model itself I'll use this for the grenades and for the pistol. In this case, cause the metal, otherwise you need then to make attention and to polish, to make the primer back and so on. Pay attention when you put on the model, so take your time, because it's simply annoying after to correct the metals, but it's quite easy to put color on. And then it's time for the level. So in this case I use the XV88, but you can use other colors. Simply I like to use this as base, and it's a citadel base that I like to put to create the levels, and I use only 2 browns to modify if they are close to create different type of levels using a different combination. So it's up to you decide how you want to paint them. I simply find that it's really quite easy. In this case, anyway, it's a base that it's not so thick, so eventually have to use more layer about this one. Again, I use a detail brush for using this because I need not to cover some details and so on and reach some parts, and I prefer to use such brush. But anyway, here you can adjust as you want and as you prefer about the painting for the level. And now I have to paint the golden parts, and for this I use the Retributor Gold Armor. I think that it's one of the best gold colors that I can find. Simply I love it. They change me quite a lot the way that I can paint the gold, and really freed me a lot of time to realize gold. So about the weapons, we have to pay attention and control with a brush for the details, so that we don't need to come back with the colors under and we risk to ruin the effect that we needed. So paint with taking a bit of attention to the movement that you need for the details. But also for the main model you have to pay attention about where you put the gold and using a small brush for the details. Anyway, the advantage of the Retributor Gold Armor is that it's easy to control, so you don't have problems about in escaping or so on. It's really quite amazing in that way. And when you go to paint the belt, eventually think about moving or removing the backpack of the model, because you can move it. I suggest you not to glue, so it can be quite useful to be moved. So adjust the position of the model as you need for the painting. It's one of the things that I suggest. And also you have to remember to paint the back of the head where there are the connectors of the armor to the head itself of the model. So pay attention and try to be precise, because otherwise it's not so easy to cover it for the model. And then we have to polish the mistake that we had done. So we take the Abaddon Black, and with a small brush for the details we correct the eventually parts that we messed a bit. So we pay attention and we try to be more precise that we can, because this should be one of the last steps that we have to do. Then we combine back the model. And now it's time to blend everything together. About this I use the Agrax Earthshade. It's a color that for me it's a sort of panacea. I use it in a lot of different combinations. So I take a brush that I use for the brushing, and I start to put this color, this ink, on all the model, so that everything combined together, because I like this color, because it makes it a bit dirty but not so dirty, so that it makes a sort of shadowing that I really like a lot. You have not to abuse about such shadowing, but the results I think that are really quite amazing, and it's something that then you can correct quite easily eventually, and it's perfect fit when you use dark colors. And because we use the link, now we have to make a little highlights. So we take a brush for the small details, we take the Rackard flash again, and we made a little the brush on some details, for example for the breast, so that we can make it highlight and so make a bit more volumetric. So it's something that we need to put a little efforts, but the result is really quite good. And about the lens of the helmet, we made a little highlight, because using the ink we made a little less bright, so we need to recover it the light. But a detail that I want to use is using the transparent green of the Vallejo to create the light on the lens of the helmet. So I use a really little amount of this color, so that with a small brush detail I can put it, and with the brighter parts that are the lens that I used before, I can make it that the light is more suitable, so the helmet has a sort of flashlight coming from the helmet itself. Anyway, because the lenses are really quite small, to correct everything and make it result the colors of the lens without covering everything, I use again the Rackard flash, and paying a lot of attention I make the design around the lens themselves, so that it's easier to identify the bright the lens light green one from the helmet itself. Then we can see the final result. We can use the protective, we can make the base and so on, but it's not such a problem. Eventually about the bases, remember that in the description there is the playlist about. And I think that this is a way to realize a really simple but effective black armor, and I think that it's really quite useful and requires less stress and less time than simply painting each line step by step. So, from Dynamod it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.